let's talk about what's happening there. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, right? But it feels like at the moment in particular, in America and around the world, there is a different response and upscaled, even hotter, as in there's more heat in the conversation than of the last, say, 6 to 12 months of conversations going around to do with Israel and Gaza. We all know about the lawyer Paul Fisher. We all know he's got form on yelling at people. But what we're also seeing, this was just over the weekend, I believe, a Turkish student in America, I think in New York, who onlookers say the masked police officers that took her looked like a kidnapping was happening. So if you're listening to the audio podcast,
yeah, you don't look like it. Why are you hiding your faces?
So that's an onlooker talking to the
Can
police.
I see some faces here? How do I know this is the police? Seems like bullshit to me. Certainly looks like it.
We've seen that as well in the last couple of weeks with Mahmoud Khalil as well.
You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
Okay, let's not. Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving me.
And then in the West Bank, we saw the Oscar winner taken. It just feels like things have become even more heightened than usual. And I just wouldn't mind throwing it to you guys. I think I want to start with Samar. I want to throw it to you guys and see what your thoughts are around, I mean, open dialogue conversation, but at the moment, things feel like they're more heated than usual, especially in the area of pushback. Protest seems more heated than usual. Samar?
Yeah, absolutely. As the genocide has resumed, the anti-Palestinian narratives have only grown in the West, and Western media is not reporting at all on the fact that the United States is slipping into fascism faster than ever, that they're abducting random people off the street and disappearing them, and also that they're sending immigrants to offshore dungeons where they face really severe human rights abuses. None of this is covered in our media. Neither is the questioning of our relationship with the United States in the first place. Should we be aligning ourselves with the United States? Should we be building greater military capacity with the United States as they fund a genocide, as they openly and celebrate funding a genocide? We didn't even get criticism over really any media pushback of New Zealand supporting the bombing campaign of Yemen, an already devastated, impoverished country. And then they extended that deployment for another 6 months. Very little pushback. They even went with the government to the United States, and all of their questions there were pathetic. Absolutely zero pushback. And yeah, we're just seeing, to be honest, this is an acceleration of policies that was also the fault of Labour, because we had actually Helen Clark begin the regular meetings with NATO, and in their words, bring us closer to NATO than ever before. This continued under Jacinda Ardern, who also maintained a really good relationship with Biden. And now this government's come in and said the previous government is anti-American, which just shows you that they want to push us even more to the right, an even greater relationship with them. And we've got AUKUS to worry about. We've got all of these things. They're antagonizing China and wanting to turn the Pacific into a military playground. Huge issues that our media should be all over, and yet we're not. Of course, also, and I really wanted to bring this up while Kieran was here, but I got really taken away by our discussion, that Labour supported the genocide to begin with and didn't speak up until the moment that they...
Oh, no one's touched anything. It's an awkward time to pop off, but no one's been cut.
Yeah, I think that's a bit rough, actually. I think that there are lots of activism within the Labour Party that have got.
Let's just go back to Samar. Let's just go back to Samar to finish your point, then you guys can respond. Finish your point, Samar. I don't know what happened there. No one touched anything.
I don't know what happened there either, but in terms of Labour's support for genocide, I distinctly remember, and I screen recorded it, when Ryan Bridges' interview with Hipkins, he specifically asked him, do you think it is aligning with international law for Israel to cut all food, water, and power to Gaza. And he said this twice to him, and both times Hipkins said, refused to condemn it. He refused to say it was a breach of international law, effectively giving it a green light. Meanwhile, they were throwing the Naya Mahuta under the bus for not condemning Hamas in the exact way that Israel needed them to in order to start the genocide. So they waited until they left power, and then yes, they did speak out. And I remember that Damien O'Connor is the only person, as far as I've seen, to call it a genocide, and I have huge respect to him, and I think it speaks to his Irish whakapapa. But we haven't had enough, and Labour is not using their political power now. They're forcing Greens into Party Māori to use the very little political leverage that they have to bring this issue into the House again and again.
I can't, I mean, not that I'm not that I'm saying you're wrong, Smart, but what I'd like to be able to do now is show that, to show the people, because there'll be people out there going, I didn't know that. I can't find anything on it. But so we'll leave that as said right now, because I think Shane was going to respond to it once you got
yeah,
Shane.
look, we collectively haven't done enough to call out the genocide that has been occurring, not just since the 7th of October. The 7th of October was horrible, what occurred, but this has been going on for 30, 40 years in terms of the disenfranchisement of the people from Palestine. And yeah, I think that we do need to be stronger, but I just want to say something to the sister. There are lots of Labour people that have been very involved in the Palestine movement for 30 odd years. So let's just not lump us all in together if we can. And I think what we got to do is we've got to get the Israeli ambassador back in front of the Prime Minister and got to hold him to an account. And if he represents a government that does not respect international norms or laws, perhaps it's time for him to go.
Kia ora.
Craig, anything to add in?
This is not an area where I have a giant level of expertise. I'll put that straight up here. What I would say is that perhaps I'm reading this wrong. Certainly, the Labour Party meetings that I'm involved in, the support for the Palestinian causes is not something I've ever heard wavered. And in fact, in many rooms, there's been strong and vocal support, not only for peace in Palestine, but for the Palestinian people themselves and for a just peace in Palestine. But this conflict seems much more about one person, and that's the Israeli leader and his desperation to cling to power.
Yes.
Because whilst he has conflict, he makes sure that he doesn't lose power. He forces the Israeli people into a horrible situation in which they're forced to back their military because he is creating a conflict deliberately to avoid being kicked out of power. The millisecond he's kicked out of power, there are several warrants for his arrest. So we end up in this horrible cycle of conflict just to appease one person. And that to me is not a great place for us to be. But at the same time, and certainly, you know, there's got to be better ways of dealing with the challenges in the Middle East than blowing up children's hospitals on television. There's, you know, we have to work towards a just peace here, however whatever that is. But that's going to require a much longer and a much more patient set of political actors in the Middle East than the ones that we have right now.
Hey, Pat, I got to go. I got to go get on with my day. Lovely having a cordial. Miss all my whānau at home. I know that there's a few listening to them. Hey, Pat, good little story. You like this? At the marae, I think it was in February, talking about media appearances, he goes, and this queer of ours said, I like those guys with the beard from the South Island. I watch them all the time. So there you go, mate. You're a hit and Waimana, Pat.
Perfect. Kia ora, Shane. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for your time. Just to wrap up, because you guys put the link in there. I think I have a coding here. I can bring it up. Do you want me to do that, Samar, so we can see it?
I think people can look that up in their own time. It is still on YouTube. PM Chris Hipkins condemns Hamas attack, and it's somewhere around a minute. He asks him.
I found it. It's right there. Minute 31. Support the complete siege of Gaza. So,
I mean, you can play it briefly.
Well, I'll just play it, and because then people get a chance to see what you've said straight away, and then they all know. So I'll just play it. I haven't heard it. I haven't queued it up well, so we'll just see how this goes.
other parts of the world. I think it's still too early to even really speculate on what a New Zealand contribution here might look like.
Has there been a request at all?
As I've indicated, I think we would look to make sure that we're supporting any multilateral, international efforts.
Have there been multilateral requests for our assistance?
Not yet, but there's certainly conversations happening.
Between?
But there was a United Nations Security Council meeting. No particular outcome came from that meeting, but there will undoubtedly be international conversations.
Do you support the complete siege of Gaza, cutting off food, fuel, water and electricity? You've said that Israel has the right to defend itself. Do you support that right?
Well, Israel has a right to defend itself, but there are international norms in terms of what a proportionate response is, and we would expect that they continue to comply with.
Is that proportionate?
Look, I'm not going to make a judgment on specifics at this point. I don't think I'm in a position to be able to do that in an informed way.
What's the New Zealand government's position on a siege of food, fuel, water and electricity on the Palestinians living in Gaza?
Our position remains that New Zealand supports a two-state solution when it comes to the situation there. In terms of the specific conflict, I'm not going to take a position on a day-by-day basis about whether Israel's justified in its actions or not. I simply don't have enough information about what is happening on the ground there right now to be able to do that. And I don't think it would be a responsible thing for New Zealand to do.
Is what Hamas did.
So, to be clear, and this shouldn't require saying, but there is absolutely no justification in the world to cut off all food, power and water to an entire hostage population, because that is what Gaza is. They cannot leave from the fences around them. So this moment happened, and I can tell you, on behalf of me, my family, and so many other people who see themselves in Palestinians, we will never forget that he gave this green light to explicit genocidal intent. And the only one more thing I want to add is that in response to Craig, with all due respect, this is not just about Netanyahu. The vast majority of Israelis support the genocidal war, and poll after poll after poll. It's also a very long running colonial project, the last 80 years, the longest running modern occupation. So this is definitely bigger than Netanyahu. Obviously, Netanyahu is awful, but he is a representative of the Israeli attitude towards Palestinian. That is a very uncomfortable but true fact.
I would say that I don't hear Christopher Hipkins that you said giving the green light to genocide. I agree he could have been stronger, but I don't think it's completely to the other side of he's giving it the green light. I think, I don't want to sound wishy-washy, but his statement to me feels wishy-washy and somewhere in the middle, but I would not say that was green light from my perspective.
I'd agree. I think we can do both things at the same time, right? We can condemn rightly, Sama, the removal of food, fuel, education, water, the right to travel, the right to just not be murdered in your in your home, right? We can condemn all of those things and rightly condemn those things. But what Chris said wasn't the same thing as him then saying, and therefore I support genocide. I don't think that's the same thing. I think we can agree that what is being done by the Israeli army in particular parts of the Middle East is breaks all the norms of international conflict, breaks all the norms that normally would have countries hauled in front of the ICJ, right? But I didn't hear Chris say, and therefore the New Zealand government, of which he was representing at the time, or the Labour Party, therefore supports genocide. I think those two things are different.
So the reason I use the term green light is because he didn't explicitly put a red light and say, no, this is against international law. New Zealand condemns the blocking of all food and water and electricity into Gaza. And by doing so, he enabled and contributed. This was obviously not just Chris Hipkins. This was across the Western political spectrum. They all refused to condemn the explicit genocidal intent of Israel. And that refusal to condemn and call it out is what enabled the genocide to happen.
So you're saying because he didn't say no, he's tacitly said yes, even if that's not his position or he's not using those words. I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I completely hear what you're saying. Because the thing I would say, using the metaphor, he didn't you use the green light because he didn't use the red light. There's also the yellow or the orange in the middle. That might be a part of the conversation. But look, I agree with you. And I think I had a conversation with the mayor of Dunedin, Aaron Hawkins, once, and it was really interesting. At the last election, I spoke to all of the mayoralty candidates. And what's really interesting is what he, as the current mayor, couldn't say. And I saw it because all the guys coming on doing the I want to be mayor, were just so black and white with their opinions because they could be. He, as the mayor, couldn't be because his black and white position, I'm not suggesting this as a defense for Chris, I'm just saying the reality of it. His black and white position could have affected, I don't know, if the DCC's on the stock market or whatever, it could have made a tangible difference to functioning of things. I wonder if a prime minister faces that more so than the leader of the opposition or the leader of a minor party. I actually agree with you though, Simone. I would like to have heard him use those words, but I guess I'm thinking about the practicality of it as well. So it's, yeah, I mean, like, you know, Chloe for Prime Minister, is that what Chloe was there?
Yeah,
say
yeah. I was going to say it speaks to the limitations of the Labour Party, what you're saying,
Yeah.
because I absolutely believe that that is the case, that he was limited in what he was able to say. But just to reiterate, we're talking about genocide here. The stakes are extremely high. So while normally I would agree with you that he's not saying no, so it's not a green light, but in this particular case, with the stakes being so high and the question being reiterated to him numerous times, that's why I take the position that I do.
Yeah.
But